Shalom and welcome to 2 Minutes of Torah. This year is entitled in memory of Mrs. Miriam Beck, mother, Mr. Mayor Beck. So Mrs. Miriam Beck passed away Thursday, last day of Chol Hamoed, Pesach, Tafshin Ayin Tet in Toronto. Community we weren't really zocher to know her, only got to see the fruits of her labor. See 3 generations. See the mayor, his wife Atara, prominent members of our shul, Ophir and Devorah Strauss from our shul as well, and then their children. So we're zocher to see 3 generations that Mrs. Miriam Beck has produced, offspring, and it's unbelievable nachas, building up beautiful Torah homes in Eretz Yisrael and Ramat Beit Shemesh, such prominent members of our Kehillah. Her memory should always be for a blessing and inspiration to all of us. With her passing on Thursday, a lot of questions come up, and we'll deal with one right now. We all are familiar with the fact that a person does not begin Avelut of Shiva on the Moed. And therefore, on Thursday, even if the burial is in Toronto on Thursday, there's no Avelut, does not begin. Friday was the last day of Yom Tov. Also, Avelut does not begin. Question is, on Shabbat. So Shabbat, Friday night does not contradict Avelut the way Yom Tov does. Normally, on a typical week of Shiva, Shabbat is one of the days of Shiva. The second day, the third day, fourth day, fifth day, it's one of the days of Shiva. Yom Tov has an element of Simcha, and that does not coexist with Shiva. And therefore Shiva cannot begin on Yom Tov, and if it began before Yom Tov will cancel it. But we know that Shabbat does coexist, and on Shabbat we observe Dvarim Shebitzina, private things. A person should not wash l'tanuk for pleasure, anoint himself, put oil on himself or herself for pleasure. Tashmish Amitav, marital relations, and learning Torah. Learning Torah is restricted just to those areas that one is allowed to learn during Avelut. So that's during a typical Shabbat that begins on Monday or Tuesday, Wednesday or Thursday. Shabbat is one of those days. But what about in the case of Avelut for Mrs. Miriam Beck Z where the burial is Thursday in Toronto. Friday is Yom Tov. We don't begin Shiva. So we begin Shiva Friday night. So the Torah in Yoredeya, Siman Tov Bet, brings down the Shita of Rabbi Yechiel, a Rishon, who maintains that we do not begin on Shabbat. But he also brings down those that say we do begin on Shabbat. The Shulchan Aruch in Yoredeya, Tov Bet, Siv Zayin, he only brings down the opinion that we do begin Shiva on Shabbat. His case is if one hears about a death and he just didn't know about the death, he only heard about it after the burial, and he first heard about it on Shabbat, a few days or weeks within 30 days of the death and the burial, he begins Shiva. It's known as a Shmu'ah Krova. He begins on Shabbat. So apparently, Rav Yechiel may hold that you need a ma'aseh of Avelut. You need to do some act of Avelut. A person must sit on the floor, must rip his clothing. He must do something, a public demonstration, a ma'aseh of Avelut on Shabbat, in order to begin the Shiva, which we don't do on Shabbat. Therefore, you don't begin on Shabbat. While the Paskin, the Shulchan Aruch Paskins, that no, one must observe Avelut in order to begin Shiva. And therefore, on Shabbat we observe Avelut. We have the restrictions, the private restrictions. And that's how one observes Avelut at Shabbat. And once one observes Avelut at Shabbat, that begins the Shiva. So therefore, Meir began Shiva on Shabbat. That was his first day of Shiva. And then the formal public day began Saturday night. was what everyone came over to visit a Nichum Avilim. May the family be inspired by the memory of Mrs. Miriam Beck, and may they have Nechama, Shama, Shalom.